Hi, I'm Eric from RockyMountainATVMC.com, and this is our build for our 2017 RZR XP Turbo. So this is a build we put together as we raced the Work Series last year. And we put together a little video series, a 3-part video series that you can actually check out by clicking the link below. But this started out really as, we wanted to do some, we had some new ideas for some Tusk products, and we wanted to do some accelerated testing, so we thought, why not go racing? What it came down to though was durability testing everything on this car and scrambling to get ready for the next race. Now, for those of you who are looking at this and thinking, I'm really not that interested in a race car build, hold on a second. At the end of the day, we looked around and we discovered that we had basically solved all the issues. We'd taken care of all the issues that tend to surface when you're starting to drive these cars like you really want to. So what we ended up with was a built-to-the-hilt play car that's ready for whatever you can dish out. All right, so let's jump into this. So let's start with the drivetrain because that's where I had the most issues. The turbo makes an unbelievable amount of power. And with a little bit of finesse, you can really make the stock components last. But racing and finesse, they really don't go together. So starting with the axles, I was pretty much breaking at least one, sometimes 2 axles in a race weekend, and that was getting really old. And so we did our research, we looked around a little bit, and RCV kept coming up. So RCV axles are really popular in the rock crawling and the desert racing truck world, trophy truck world. And so we ended up throwing them on the car all the way around, and that ended the problem. We haven't had another axle failure since. The front diff had some problems. With the earlier turbo cars, they had a lot of problems. They made some upgrades for 2017, but I still managed to destroy my front differential. So we threw an extreme duty armature plate and a billet Sprague carrier from Soundcraft Motorsports in it, and we haven't had any more problems with that. While we had the front diff out, we decided to put a carrier bearing, Soundcraft Motorsports carrier bearing, on the front driveline. It's a really long driveline. It goes all the way from the back of the machine all the way up to the front diff, and sometimes you get some weird vibrations. That front driveline actually wants to walk off to the side a little bit. So the billet carrier bearing, it's super strong, super durable. We really struggled on belt life on this car. If we weren't changing it all the time, we were blowing belts, and when they would blow, they'd be in teeny tiny little chunks. And so definitely excessive heat was a problem. We went to SLP, Starting Line Products, and they helped us with some clutch tuning. And basically what we ended up doing is moving the engagement a little closer to where the turbo starts to come in. And so it removed some of that lag. It made it a little bit more consistent to drive around the corners. That tuning was a little aggressive for a play car, and so right now in the car we have just their regular sand, oversized tire clutch kit in it, and it makes it, the engagement's perfect, and it makes this car really fun to drive in a play car environment. We also put a Trailtech digital belt temp gauge on this car, so we can just keep track of how hot the belt's getting. Anytime you get over about 200 degrees, the belt life just starts falling. So it's just right there. The readout's up by the steering wheel, so you can keep track of what's going on back there. We had a transmission failure, and when we had the transmission apart, we made sure and put the RCV 300M subshaft back in. And why this is important is because that is the main output shaft for your front differential. When we were pulling the transmission out, we also noticed that we had bent the front motor mount tube, and we'd cracked a rear transmission mount. And so we upgraded to the Soundcraft parts. The front motor mount tube is a chromoly 120 wall tube, and then it has billet motor mounts and transmission mounts. So we upgraded all that and haven't had a problem since. On to engine performance. So to be honest, it was never an issue of needing more power out of this car. The car makes so much power, it's actually really hard to drive. And so we were kind of focused on making it more drivable. So one thing we did do is we played around a little bit with the Dynojet PowerVision CX. And what that lets you do is flash your ECU, and you hook up your laptop, you go in, you can change all the parameters. So you can change all the stock settings, you can change your fuel, your ignition, even the protective settings. And that's what was important for us. So on this car, it's got a safety feature that it doesn't let you brake and gas at the same time. You know, the car thinks you're power braking. And so to protect itself, it cuts out. It goes into a momentary limp mode. When I'm driving aggressively, I use both feet. And so you come into the corner and you set up with your brake, and then as soon as you get the car set for the corner, then you get back into your gas hard. And we removed the cutout so we could do that without the car cutting out, because you get mid-corner and all of a sudden you've got all your power cut halfway into your slide. It can really cause some havoc. But the Dynojet is a really powerful tool, and you know, it's crazy how you can, you know, you've got free reign over all those settings. Next, we threw on an SLP exhaust because honestly, it sounds cool. And let's not kid ourselves, that's really what's important. It increases, you know, performance. It does sound great, but it's freer flowing. It's getting some heat out of the engine. It's a really well-made part. On to suspension and steering. So really that's what started this project, this whole build, is we wanted to build and test our own Tusk line. And to do that, we wanted to find out where the stock components were failing, where the weaknesses were. And we were able to find that out pretty quick and move on to building and testing our own components. All right, so enter the Tusk Mohawk line. To start off with, we have the high clearance lower A-arms. So we built these with, it's an 1.25 inch tubing, 120 wall thickness. So that's what, 25% larger and 20% thicker wall thickness. They have a beautiful milled ball joint area. They've got all the gussets in them. Really well built, high quality part. So on to the Tusk Mohawk upper A-arms. So these are, again, 1.25 inch diameter, 120 wall thickness, 25% bigger than the OEM arms, 20% thicker wall thickness. Beautiful milled piece where the ball joints hook onto them. We found a couple weak points on the uppers, and one of them is the arch towards the rear of the arm. It really fatigued, started cracking. We actually put our external gusset, our Mohawk, on it, and we addressed a couple other little issues, and we have a solid piece. Now on to the Tusk Mohawk trailing arms. We went through a few designs before we ended up with this version. It's pretty difficult to make a high clearance piece that's strong, but the main support tube is made from 1.75 inch OD, 156 wall steel tubing. And then we have our Mohawk gusset that's welded along about 75% of the main support tube's length. This makes it so we've got our optimum strength while still allowing for 2 inches of additional ground clearance. So we had an upper radius rod fail at our very first race, and so we moved pretty quick to get our Tusk radius rods going. The uppers are made from 1 inch, 120 wall tubing, super strong. The lowers are high clearance. They have a Mohawk gusset on them, super strong, definitely the way to go. I'm sure you guys are starting to sense a pattern here, but I was able to break a front tie rod, and so we replaced them with some replacements from SDI, super strong, haven't had any more problems. So we've been hearing a lot about sway bars and how it affected the handling of these cars. For those of you who've been in an XP before, there's quite a bit of body roll. And so as we started researching, we came upon the shock therapy ones. A lot of people were saying some good things about them, and so we decided to give them a shot. We put the front and rear setups on this car, and what that does is it keeps the car flatter. So you're coming around the corner in the high speeds, it really keeps the car from having too much body roll. So as the speeds go up, the confidence goes up. So shocks. Coming from a background of dirt bikes, I didn't really expect to struggle understanding what was happening with my suspension and what direction I needed to go. But man, we learned a ton. It was a pretty steep learning curve, and we actually tried 3 different brands and 4 different setups. In the racing world, the tracks really can vary wildly and the setups need to change wildly to adapt. We also know that race valving really doesn't work for a play car. Now, something that we have learned is that while the stock shocks and valving are really quite amazing, we can tell a huge difference when swapping in a true crossover type spring setup. So what that does is you keep the initial plush feeling, plus you get the added bottoming resistance on the bigger or the faster hits. And we carry a couple brands, but we have the shock therapy setup on this play car, and they're a perfect complement to your Fox or Walker Evans shocks. Crossover spring kits are definitely the way to go for us. So we tried a few different sets of tires and wheels throughout the year. I always come back to the Terabytes. I've put thousands of miles on the Tusk Terabyte tires, and I just feel really comfortable with them. I'm really sensitive to how the cars handle with the tires. They just offer a really controlled and predictable ride. For the wheels, we started the season with the Method 401 beadlocks. They're a great tire. They work perfectly, never any problems at all. But towards the end of the year, we started testing our new Tusk beadlock tires, and pretty happy to say that they work great. We didn't have any failures, and we're really excited about the new Tusk wheel program. So onto the tire blocks. So tire blocks are basically a run flat foam insert that goes inside your tire. So if you get a puncture, you tear a sidewall, you can still continue your race, your ride, whatever it is. And tire blocks are cool because they have a couple features to them. One is you run air inside the tire with your tire blocks. So a lot of us like to, play with our PSIs a little bit and get that ideal traction and air pressure. But also, if you do puncture, tear a sidewall, they run with like about 10 pounds is what the effective feeling is on an empty tire with the tire blocks in it. So it's plenty of pressure to get back to the truck, find a safe place to change out your tire. Now, one cool side effect for a play car is when you're rock crawling, you can drop these things all the way down to 10 and basically run flat and not even worry about pinching a sidewall, not worry about getting a flat. So I didn't think I'd like them for a play car. I'm loving them. So on to protection. So we've always been huge believers in the UHMW and the Tusk Quiet Glide skid plate. And we've taken our cars and we've dropped them over countless ledges and big boulders and logs but nothing really showed us how important these skid plates are than when we were slot car racing in the ruts at some of these works rounds. Basically, the skid plate is on the ground the whole entire time. And it is amazing the amount of abuse that these skid plates took and kept everything protected underneath the car. Next, we have the Tusk trailing arm mount sliders. And so what it is on the bottom of this, on the belly of the beast, is the trailing arm mount is actually the lowest point. So it's sometimes the first contact with the ground. So we've got a UHMW piece that goes over the top of that. So it makes it so we just slide over obstacles and not get hung up. So next is communications. And that's something that we really needed in-car comms for racing, but it's something that I really ended up enjoying. So there's a couple things you need to know. It was a little confusing to me when we started doing it, but the first thing you need is an intercom. So that's basically between your driver, your co-driver, passengers, whatever it is. And so you need that intercom, and then everybody either needs speakers in their helmet or headsets or something with a mic on it so they can talk back and forth. So that's an open channel, goes back and forth, everybody knows what's going on. An added bonus of that is that it has an aux cable. So you can plug in your music, listen to that over the top of everything else. We actually have one of the earlier versions, but we sell the RRP 660. It's an upgraded version of it. It's really nice. You get your clear communications. You can hear what's going on. Like I said, the intercom is for in-car communications. Now, to talk car to car or car to spotter, you need a radio. For the car, we use the Rugged Radios RM25R. It's permanently mounted and works with the in-car intercom. We also used our Rugged Radios RH5R. It's a little handheld dual band radio that our spotters used, or now we find the use that we give them to, someone in our group doesn't have a radio in their car. We give them that and they can talk to the group so we can all stay in communication. Really fun piece. That the whole radio and the ComSync has really increased our enjoyment for when we're out there riding around. We originally put the Dragonfire Racing RT high back seats in the car for the added side bolsters and how the 5-point harness works with them. But what we're finding out is they're just super comfortable. So they're a suspension seat design. That just basically means that the seat base is suspended by a fabric material in there. So it's a little bit extra cushion, a little bit extra give. And then they also have quite a bit of padding. It's kind of funny watching my girls fight over who's gonna ride with dad instead of who's gonna ride with mom because of my comfortable seats. Next, we have the Tusk 5-point harnesses. So they're a true 5-point harness. They have the padded shoulders. There's a little bit of a learning curve, learning how to get in and out of them fast, but definitely worth the trade-off for safety. So we also have the Dragonfire quick release steering wheel system in the car. So it was a must when they had the full race cage on it. You can get that steering wheel, you just pop it off, set the steering wheel to the side, then you can crawl out the front window if you want. Don't really need it so much anymore, but I found a different use is as a security feature. It's pretty hard to steal my car and drive away without a steering wheel. Next, we have the Tusk quick release fire extinguisher kit. So this uses an upgraded metal handle 2.5 pound fire extinguisher. It's an ABC, so all the types of fires you're going to encounter in a UTV, this covers. The quick release is pretty slick. Pull the pin, it's in your hand, and you're ready to go. So next we have a pretty cool item. It's the Safecraft automatic fire suppression kit. And so what this is it's a thermally fired kit. So if there's a fire that starts at a certain temperature, the end of it breaks and it releases the suppressant. And it's actually a Novem. It's made by 3M. It doesn't make a mess. There's no cleanup in case this thing does go off. The one I've got on this car is actually a bigger one. I had a friend that is in a chair that co-drove with me a little bit, and I wanted to give us a little extra time to get out of the car in case we had a mishap. But the one we sell is a 3-pound unit, and I highly suggest that everybody get one of these on their car. Now on to the miscellaneous items. So we have a few things on this car that we didn't have before when we were racing, and vice versa. So the full race cage with the aluminum roof and aluminum door panels, that's not on the car anymore. Although it was kind of fun to have to climb in and out of the window every time. Yeah, just kidding, it's not. It's way more convenient to have a door. So starting off, we've got the Tusk aluminum doors on it. We also have our Tusk profile aluminum roof. We have a set of our Tusk alloy mirrors on it. We have a Tusk polycarb hinged front windshield. And we also have the Tusk polycarb rear windshield. So there you have it. An intense project for sure. It was a ton of fun. It was a ton of work. We learned a bunch, and we were able to really put the hurting on this machine, on some of these components, and end up with, an awesome build. This is a car that I want to drive all the time now. But anyways, if you're interested in these items, make sure and click the link below, or head on over to our website at RockyMountainATVMC.com. Remember, the items, orders over $75, ship free. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you out there.